Gourmet number 15, Puffer Whale.
Well, hello, my brothers and sisters of the Nerd Nation. I, as always, am Jim, here to bring you another review on the awesome, appetite-inducing tale of Toriko. Our last chapter, of course, saw us being introduced, albeit briefly, to the old man that was actually on the train from about 5 or 10 chapters ago, starting out this arc, and we find out that he is the master ultimate gourmet hunter, Jiro, and that he's the one that saved Komatsu's life. Of course, the chapter ended up with Komatsu being found, rescued, so to speak, by Coco and Toriko, and the three being united again and moving on towards Cavern Lagoon. We know that it's just up ahead, and certainly it's exciting to know that they are coming to, obviously to fruition, their plan and getting the puffer whale. So we wind up seeing the first several pages is actually kind of cool because it plays as a backdrop and a flashback to what happened just a few minutes prior with Jiro and him obviously saving Komatsu. They wind up seeing some footprints in the sand as they come upon, the lagoon, and Komatsu is like, man, I have a feeling that was from that old man, and they're like, what are you talking about, They wind up eventually through, Komatsu talking a little bit, they make the connection, Toriko does that, because he kind of smelled that similar smell or whatever it obviously is. He's got the keen sense of smell, and he made the connection with Komatsu that was the old man that was actually on the train. But then we go and we see Komatsu's actual flashback, and it was pretty cool because, again, this is part of the detailed world building that happens here and explaining everything, whether it's plausible explanations or not. At least the author takes the time to explain it to you, which I think is kind of cool. So, and will continue to do so as long as he does that. So we wind up seeing him use this special knocking gun, I guess you would call it. It sort of looks like it's got two pincers on it, like a knocking gun. Of course, he's super sized at the time, and it's kind of funny because his hand is like the size of Komatsu. But we know that he can increase or decrease his mass based on if he needs to. So apparently that's his magical power. But he goes and he nails Komatsu with this knocking gun, and as he's talking about, and he's drunk too, mind you. He's like tipsy because he's been drinking the puffer whale fin sake, and the guy's just a drunk that we find out. But he's he's obviously a functioning drunk because he goes and he does revive Komatsu. But it's funny while he's doing it because he keeps like hiccuping, and he's talking about how it's not he hasn't brought a heart back to life in quite some time since he retired, and never on a human, always on some kind of creature. But humans are much more resilient than creatures. It takes 3 minutes, approximately 3 minutes for their brain to actually die once their heart stops. And again, these are all type of things that whether they're factual or not, I didn't take the time to actually look up that particular one, they sound factual and relevant. You know what I mean? It sounds plausible and believable, and that's what I enjoy. One of the many things that I enjoy. So he explains that, and then he goes and he obviously puts, and he's like, I got time for another sip. And he just looks so funny with the huge pompadour and everything. So he goes and he revives Komatsu, and Komatsu's like, all of a sudden he's awake, right? And he immediately goes and sees him. He's like, oh my God, it's a giant old man. It's a Godzilla geezer. I just thought that was funny, kind of being a child of the 80s and 90s and growing up watching a lot of Godzilla, bad dubbed Godzilla too, by the way. And so he winds up going, the whole Godzilla is attacking the city, that type of stuff. And so he starts running from him, and he's like, whoa, hold on a second, buddy. Why are you going to be like that? I just saved your life, So then Komatsu goes and settles down for a second, after he thinks about it. And his eardrums, of course, have been popped as well. He winds up going and Jiro winds up taking this cool little tool and sticking it in. We see this side view of him sticking it in Komatsu's ear, and it actually recreating and rebuilding that layer, that wall, that thin wall of flesh or tissue that creates the eardrum. Now, as far as I know, if you get your eardrums popped, it does regenerate and grow back, but it probably takes weeks or months, and your hearing is severely impaired probably while that happens. So he winds up explaining that it was from this sea doctor lobster, I believe is what he called it, and it was from the saccharine something gland of it. And basically what it is it's the healing property bonds very well with humans, animals, all types of creatures, and is able to recreate that thin wall. So definitely, again, maybe I'm over explaining some of these things, but these are things that I enjoy and that I take from reading the chapter. They're the things that, as I said, it makes the chapter read a little bit slower than maybe some manga or even comic books or even books. It does slow down things a little bit, but that's kind of a cool counterpoint to the balls to the wall action that we see a lot of as well. It makes it so when there is an action-packed chapter, you don't just breeze through the chapter in like 3 minutes and then feel unsatisfied. You get to the end of the chapter and it's taken you 15 or 20 minutes or what have you. I usually read it a little bit slower, try to go over some lines, some panels, just to take in everything as far as the art and the story and that sort of thing. But definitely very cool nonetheless. So we wind up seeing that. And Komatsu, it's like this is all coming back to Komatsu. He's like recollecting this, So he's having this flashback from a few minutes ago, but it's almost like his memory's coming back with it. So the old man also goes and tells me, he says, listen, say hi to your buddy for me, but once you get your puffer whales, get out of here because I sense like a bad aura. Like there's some bad juju coming this way. There's something bad. He doesn't really go into what it is. Maybe he doesn't even know, but he just says you'll want to go. And it's kind of funny because I always use the word, my mom used to use it, skedaddle. We got to skedaddle here, Jimmy. And so he goes and he says, so when you and your, when you guys get your puffer whale, you better skedaddle. So, and then as he's walking away, Komatsu sees that he's got this bucket full of overflowing of puffer whales, and they're not poisoned, So then they go and they come back out of the flashback, and Toriko and Coco are like, yeah, well, he's this master knocker, I think is what they call him, and because he's this ultimate gourmet hunter, getting these things and removing their poison sacs is like nothing it's like child's play for him, So then they go on to explain about how that he has his full course meal already set, and it's cool because they show the full course meal, and then they go and there's like this double page spread of all these just crazy, awesomely just imagined and drawn creatures. And they're like, they haven't even come up with capture levels for a lot of these things that are on there. Some people don't even believe that this stuff exists because they've never tried it in the known world. That's how cool this guy is. He retired some time ago, but they figure, hey, he couldn't resist coming out of retirement because of the once a decade spawning of the puffer whales, and then of course the puffer whale fin sake, which is supposed to be very good and very potent. So they deduce that's why he came out. So then you go and you see them finally get to the actual cavern. They're there. They were there, but they had the flashback, and now they're going to go and they're going to jump in. And Toriko goes and says, Komatsu, go on and wait in there with Coco. You see how it's done, this and that. And Komatsu's like, are there sharks? He's like, don't worry about it. I don't think so, but if there is, it's got to be 100% easier to deal with than that old man or the devil python. And Komatsu's like, yeah, but that's still not very comforting, right? So anyway, the three of them wind up swimming underwater, getting underwater. Toriko and Coco are in the lead, and they wind up coming upon what looks like this magnificent giant puffer whale, again in like a double-page spread. And I'm like, holy shit, I thought these things were supposed to be small, right? And that's what, Toriko says to Coco. And I don't know how they're talking underwater. I'm assuming they're just kind of communicating, like mumbling, through telepathic communications. Whatever. We're not going to delve into it. They're communicating somehow. And Coco goes and says, no, it's not. It's a mirage, So what the fuck? It's a mirage. Well, you see as they go and they show the picture closer up, and this is where the artwork really shines, because then they show it up close, and this giant puffer whale is actually thousands of tiny, regular-sized puffer whales, that have all come together to make this this image of a large puffer whale. Very, very cool stuff. And so we wind up seeing that. Toriko goes and he's like, oh, great. And he goes for immediately, I'm going to catch one type of thing, the big brute. And then Coco has more of a soft touch. It seems like, no, don't, Toriko goes and just barely touches one and it just poison. It does its poison sac thing and boom, it's poison. And then Komatsu goes and comes in splashing, and Toriko goes and he's like, hey, cut it out with your water aerobics, Komatsu. You're going to make them all get poisoned over here. You see, I just barely touched one and look what happened. So Coco's like, listen, man, you gotta handle this with kid gloves over here. First, I gotta go and like erase my aura. And they kind of show him and he looks sort of like he's see-through, and because basically if these things feel any sign of discomfort, danger, angst, whatever, right, they're going to go and explode their little poison sacs, and then of course it's unedible. So that's how that part leaves off, is him going, and we assume that Coco is going to go and capture or get some of these puffer whales for us. The last page or two of the chapter, though, is kind of funny, because if you remember all the guys, basically all the brigands, the pirates, the thieves that were more or less waiting, the thieves and murderers that were waiting for gourmet hunters to come out of these tunnels that go down to Cavern Lagoon, they're all knocked out up there, right? And Jiro is like, yeah, don't worry about it. You guys will be fine. I just knocked you out. You'll come to in about 5 minutes, and I thought it was just really kind of cool, because he's just like, fucking like it's nothing, right? But anyway, the chapter winds up ending off right there. I'm certainly excited to see the next one. And I thought it was really cool too, because even when they were, went into the water in the cavern, Toriko was like, yeah, I heard that these puffer whales spawn in beautiful places, but this is just beyond beautiful, Definitely would be a cool thing to see some of those panels in color, I think, because it would certainly add to it, add layers of depth to it. When you hear him describing things being beautiful, you think of the different color patterns, the tones, the auras. But ultimately it is what it is. So my chapter question is, though, ultimately, what do you think of this character, Jiro? We were, certainly introduced to him very briefly in the last chapter, and I asked about karma and stuff anyway, because that's kind of what I felt like was a pertinent question. But what do you think in this chapter about Jiro, about his character thus far? And because ultimately Toriko winds up talking to Komatsu, and he's like, hey, listen, man, you got to cook that guy a 5-star meal if you ever run into him. You got to show him your respect, and you're indebted to him because he saved your life, And then Komatsu's like, oh, and you'll get me the ingredients, right? And Toriko's like, hell no, you get your own stuff, boy. But we saw a lot of Jiro in this particular chapter, and I just want to know what your thoughts are on the character that we have seen thus far. Brothers and sisters, leave your answers to that comment down below. Feel free to hit the thumbs up, the like button if you should think that I deserve it, or if you're just hungry, or just because it's Tuesday. Or if you're watching this on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or Monday. But definitely not the following Tuesday. So, subscribe if you haven't done so already, and we'll look forward to catching you in the next one, Nation.
Komatsu say join the Nerd Nation. Come on, everybody's doing it.
Liar!